Terrific to have you with us on this very busy Tuesday. Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for making us a part of your day. This has the hallmarks of being a pivotal moment in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. The GOP field shrinking ahead of tonight's voting in Nevada. Establishment types coming to grips with the possibility Donald Trump will be their man. And if Marco Rubio is going to make a move, this would seem to be the ideal time. Correspondent Tom Yamas reports from Las Vegas.
This morning, a Cruz campaign shakeup, and Donald Trump is relishing every minute of it.
The evangelicals didn't vote for him. You know why? Because they don't like liars.
Overnight, Trump rallying a massive crowd in Las Vegas, saying he wanted to hit a protester who interrupted him.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
And poking fun at Senator Ted Cruz.
This guy is sick. There's something wrong with this guy.
Cruz forced to fire his communications director, Rick Tyler, after Tyler spread a false report which claimed Rubio dismissed the Bible to a Cruz staffer in this video.
Well, I know exactly what I said to that young man. I said the answer to every question you'll ever have is in that book.
Senator Rubio livid, describing a pattern of dirty campaigning by the Cruz campaign, from suggesting Dr. Ben Carson was dropping out during the Iowa caucuses to photoshopping this image of Rubio shaking hands with the president.
Someone in that organization has set that culture. Ted has to be responsible for that.
Senator Cruz looked into this most recent matter himself, then made this decision.
This morning, I asked for Rick Tyler's resignation. I had made clear in this campaign that we will conduct this campaign with the very highest standards of integrity.
And Cruz warning attacks on his character could ultimately derail his campaign.
If other candidates devote all of their time and energy to attacking us, to engaging in personal slurs and attacks, it is possible they could weaken us to a sufficient extent that they hand Donald Trump the nomination.
With us now here in the studio, Politico reporter Kevin Robillard. Thanks very much for your time. It's great having you here. There is so much going on. As we said in the introduction, this feels like a potentially pivotal moment for particularly the Republican presidential nomination chase, but clearly there's action right now on both sides. Let's begin with Marco Rubio. Is there an opportunity here, though he has yet to find the win column, for him to consolidate what some call the establishment vote, what could be described in a more horse race sense as the anti-Trump vote? Is this Marco Rubio's moment to make a big move?
Yeah, clearly this is the moment where Rubio wins the invisible primary, so to speak. This is when you're going to see all the establishment support start to flock to him. There were a lot of people who were holding their fire or were loyal to Jeb Bush. With Jeb out of the race, and to a lesser extent with Chris Christie out of the race, Marco Rubio can pick up a lot of those donors, a lot of those endorsements from elected officials. Now, there's a question of whether that matters at all in this year. And so far, it hasn't. You know, if it did matter a lot in 2016, Jeb Bush would have done a lot better than he did. So it's clear that just getting endorsements and money isn't the path to winning anymore. And right now, Rubio still has the problem where eventually he has to win a state, and it's unclear what state that could be.
Can you make the case, can you articulate what Rubio backers are saying in terms of the case for their man? I mean, central to Republican anger and conservative anger about this moment in our politics is that you can elect a smooth-talking senator who's been in office, who's been in national politics 5 or 10 minutes, and have things not turn out in a good way for the country. Obviously, Democrats would dispute that, but some have made the Rubio-Obama comparison. What's the case that the Rubio team is making to seize what feels like a real palpable moment?
Well, the thing is, they actually are making sort of an Obama comparison themselves, although they wouldn't put it in that term. They're basically saying that because this guy is young, because this guy is, you know, slightly more moderate than the other two leading candidates right now, although it's, you know, a major stretch to call Marco Rubio moderate.
This is no Jack Kemp, this is no Bob Dole.
This is a very conservative person who, you know, has probably taken some positions on abortion that will hit him very hard in a general election, for instance. But they're basically making the case that he is the most electable candidate. He is the one who can best beat Hillary Clinton. He's the one that provides the best contrast with Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders if Bernie Sanders somehow pulls off an upset. And that's really the case they have to make, because you can't ultimately argue that Rubio is more conservative than Cruz And, Trump's appeal doesn't really have anything to do with ideology. It's very difficult to, at this point, if you like Donald Trump, you're going to like Donald Trump. So it's a matter, and that's why you see Rubio and Cruz fighting so much and not really aiming so much of their fire at Trump.
Can you talk about why this seems to have been such a rough patch for Ted Cruz?
So it has been a bit of a rough patch, particularly because the theory, sort of Ted Cruz's theory of the case was always that they would sweep the SEC primary. They'd win all these southern states, maybe with the exception of Florida because of Rubio and Bush.
And then the victories would start in South Carolina.
Yes, the victories would start right there in South Carolina and then go through Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, all these other states. But if Cruz isn't going to win in South Carolina, that probably indicates that Trump is going to win in a lot of those other southern states. And so then it becomes this other question is, well, where's Cruz's next win? And that's both the problem Rubio and Cruz have right now is that if you look at the polls, the only possibility of a non-Trump win based on recent polling is John Kasich has a chance in Ohio. Other than that, Trump is leading in double digits in most of these states.
With Donald Trump outperforming Ted Cruz in a state that is more dominated by evangelical voters than probably any other state, certainly more so than any other early state. And with one poll, I believe, out just in the last few hours, showing Donald Trump outperforming John Kasich in Kasich's home state of Ohio. Reflect on, if you would, for a moment, why the establishment in the party is really coming to grips with the possibility and maybe likelihood that Donald Trump stands at the Republican National Convention and accepts his party's nomination when all this is said and done.
I think one thing that the party will have a very hard time coming to grips with was that the policies that they were selling don't appeal to their base anymore. And that includes support for free trade. That includes, cutting Social Security and Medicare or somehow voucherizing them. Those are all things Trump has opposed, and he's winning the nomination without that. And so one of the big Republican theories of the case this year was, Romney had the right ideas, we just need a different salesman. That's really the case for Rubio in particular, who's basically proposing the same policies as Romney. But Trump is proposing a radical break with what conservative Republicans have proposed for years and what being a Republican has meant for years. And so that's going to be very difficult to come to grips with. And there's also just the fact of, most elite Republicans believe that Trump will probably lose the presidency and severely cost them down ballot. And all of that is going to be very difficult to come to grips with. But ultimately, these people are, party loyalists. You're going to see a lot of them, eventually will have to come around, and they will come around. They'll justify it to themselves.
I don't pretend to have a strong sense of what sort of constituency or following or impact someone like an Eric Erickson has, but it was fascinating to read someone for whom life, anti-abortion, is the chief issue that animates him and propels his politics and his sense of how the country should go in terms of the Supreme Court and elective office, etc. To see him say what he has said about Donald Trump in the last day or so, completely untrusting of Trump's professed belief in life and standing in opposition to abortion rights, you just wonder to what extent more voices like Erickson's will come forward.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of that, and it really will come from both sort of Erickson's more conservative wing of the party and from the establishment wing of the party, each of one of whom is horrified by Trump in their own different ways. But ultimately the fact is that right now this guy is the one person who's selling something Republican voters are buying. And that's going to be very difficult for these people, and it could just mean a lot of these people end up staying home in November. It'll be interesting to see, what the impact is on, evangelical turnout. But if you go back and look in South Carolina, the evangelicals who, the right wing of the party claims to speak for, they voted for Trump. And in Iowa, they voted more of them voted for Cruz, but it's not like Trump didn't win a significant portion of them. So it's been very remarkable on just how much people have been willing to forgive Trump's, breaks with orthodoxy within the Republican Party.
We've got 2 minutes left before we hit a break. Let's spend that 2 minutes talking about the Democrats. How much easier are they breathing in the Clinton camp coming out of Nevada? The last poll, or one of the last big polls before voters participated in the caucus in Nevada, had it 48-47, and the thought was, what if this southern and western firewall that we've heard so much about was oversold? Well, she won. They're breathing easier. How much?
I think significantly easier. You've seen a lot less panic among Democrats in general over the past few days. I think people still maybe want to make sure that she wins South Carolina by a healthy margin. They don't want her squeaking by. They want, a big win there, bigger than the margin they had in Nevada, because really that's the better test, particularly of the southern firewall, because of the high population of African-American voters there. And so if Hillary Clinton's able to run up the score with black voters, she'll be able to not only sweep through, good portions of the South, but she'll also have a big leg up in places like New York or Pennsylvania, each one of which, in the Democratic primary, black voters make up a pretty good chunk of the vote.
So reestablishing what we thought from the beginning was the likely outcome of the early handful of contests. Iowa, question mark. New Hampshire, forget about it. Recover in the states that follow.
Yeah, and that's really has been sort of what her team's plan was, since they realized Sanders wasn't going to be just, sort of a fly they could swat away, which was probably sometime in the fall. So basically this is, I don't want to say this has gone directly according to Hillary Clinton's plan. I'm pretty sure she would have loved to have won Iowa and New Hampshire by significant margins, but I think the Clinton team is probably going to be a bit calmer. You've seen Robbie Mook, who is the Clinton campaign's campaign manager, seems to be safe in his job when there were previously rumors swirling around about that.
That's a very, very good point, and seemingly a big story just a couple of days ago. So we talk with Kevin Robillard, reporter for Politico. A break here. Back, though, with more news talk right after this.